Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of Mock Draft Monday here on the SFS channel. My name's Gavin. This is how we start things off every week. We get a mock draft going. I think I'm going to add one more mock draft into the weekly lineup here until the completion of draft season. Obviously, all drafts need to be done or should be done by that Thursday, September 9th date that we're kicking off the NFL season on Thursday Night Football. But if you need help with those drafts, I've got you covered. Head down. The description of today's video has the link to the SFS Draft Guide collection for the 2021 season. We've got a bunch of awesome stuff in there. 60 must-own players, sleepers, busts, my top 250 player big board rankings, my positional rankings, a draft day cheat sheet that's got tier-by-tier breakdowns of the entire big board, as well as bye weeks on there, a section where you can write some notes as your draft goes by. You can fill out your lineup there if you'd like as you draft and make sure that you're keeping up to date and filling out those positions. And then also that is print off. Obviously, if you're going to be writing on it, you're able to print that off, and it's going to be in a PDF form, so you're able to take advantage of that. So you can either purchase that and take advantage of it that way, or you can join the SFS community Discord. That's another way you can get access to me on the channel here. I'll answer your questions if you're in there and help you guys out with your fantasy content this year. But the link to that's free. It's in the description of today's video, and that'll also get you access to joining some subscriber mock drafts that we've got going on here on the channel. So without further ado, that was a long intro, but we're ready to kick things off here. We've got a full PPR mock draft here, 12 teams. I'll be picking at the bend in today's episode. And really quickly here, I'm actually going to edit my draft settings. This is for real this time. If you've been watching me, every time I whine because I get auto drafted almost every time, because when I've got subs in here, I make the clock 60 seconds, so the draft doesn't take half a day. But then when it's just me in here, I always tend to be rushed and a little bit hurried up. But we'll try and keep this episode short nonetheless. I just want to make sure I can do my picks justice and break them down for you all. So we just came off of Sunday morning doing a 16-team mock draft where I picked from the 16th overall position. Now we're back down to somewhat normal league size. I would say that this is the preferred league format, structure, size, whatever you want to call it, 12 teams. Typically, I like to play half PPR scoring because it's a great balance between full PPR and standard leagues, but I think that the majority and the most popular form of fantasy football is the completely fully PPR league. So 2 picks back-to-back here, getting some great value at the end of the board. Let's check out our options on the table here. So I'm really liking Aaron Jones as my first pick here. I think that he's the strongest RB candidate, the safest one, I would say, that you feel comfortable about his role, his situation, his health, involvement on the team. He missed a couple games last season, but outside of that, he has been extremely healthy to this point in his NFL career. Also, no more Jamal Williams in Green Bay should be somewhat of a help, although A.J. Dillon has had a strong camp and a strong offseason to this point. He didn't get too much action in that first Packers preseason game, but I think that being the second string running back, they still want to keep those legs fresh. So, I think I know where I'm going to go with this. I would love to take an Austin Eckler in today's video. There has been some speculation, some talk that the Chargers, the coaching staff came out and said they want to run somewhat of a committee-style system. There's going to be a lot of backs involved. But I'm here to tell you that really shouldn't change your thought process on Austin Eckler, because go back and look at the production and the touches from last season when Josh Kelly in the first 2 weeks of the year when Justin Jackson was out was getting roughly 20 touches per game while Eckler was on the field, and he was still managing to be a productive back. Maybe this offense sees a little bit of an uptick in passing volume and make that Aaron Jones pick here so I don't get auto-picked. But at the end of the day, I think that the passing upside in these full PPR leagues we see from Eckler, 6.5 targets per game last year, it's too good to pass on. And yes, maybe Kelly will snatch some goal line volume up, but it's not like we're picking him as a high first rounder. This is a late first round pick or even an early to middle second round pick, depending on what league scoring format you're in. So I'm not going to be picking Austin Eckler with this selection here. I'm going to be going a different route. But I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not scared off of Austin Eckler because of that talk. I think that it's something worth noting. But that's pretty much what we saw from him last year, and it is valid to say it's a new regime, it's a new coaching staff. There's a bunch of new guys in town making the final decisions and will be calling the offense for this football team. But Austin Ekeler is also one of 4 names who will not be playing for the Chargers in the preseason. What does that tell me? They value the guy a lot. They really want to make sure he's healthy, fresh, ready to go, and they want to be able to maximize the usage that they can get out of him here in the regular season, because he did have, I think it was a grade 2 or 3 hamstring strain last year. Kept him out of, 6 games because he only played 10 last season. So they want to use him. They want him healthy. They want him out there. He will be a significant part of the offense. And when the other 3 names that aren't out there are Justin Herbert, Derwin James, and Keenan Allen, I feel pretty good about taking Austin Ekeler because I think that involvement will still be there 100% of the way. Now, if you want to try and tell me in a standard league you're not so keen on him, sure, you can fade Ekeler in that format a bunch because, not having that 6.5 targets per game on your side just by catching the ball, giving you a freebie point, I understand that's going to make a difference, and I'm here to tell you that will make a difference. But if you're playing half PPR, full PPR, don't be worried here. Ekeler will be just fine. So we went Stephon Diggs for the second pick there. Look, he's my wide receiver 2. I've got Adams as my number 1, Diggs as my number 2, and then Hill at the number 3 spot. I get him as the third receiver off the board here. I just like his involvement and usage in that offense. He had 30% of the target share for the Bills in 2020, and he only had 7 touchdowns. He can absolutely grow on that, and he can absolutely become better in that facet of the game. So I think that's something we don't have to worry about too much, having regression, because obviously you're probably going to at least equal or improve upon that 7 touchdown performance last season. So taking a peek here. Back-to-back picks. I could completely square away the running back position, but this being full PPR, I'm not going to go too RB heavy at the top of the board here. I think I will take one, and actually here, let's check this out. I have not been brought to light about this issue. I see David Montgomery hobbled off the field in the first snap of the game against the Dolphins. Yeah, the injury does not appear to be significant or serious at this time. So that's the beautiful thing about drafting here on Sleeper Fantasy as opposed to ESPN. While you're drafting, like this happened yesterday, but it obviously wasn't significant enough for a tweet or an alert to be sent out about it because I haven't seen anything about it to this point. But I see it's questionable here. I can jump right on, and easy for me to read in this section here is just a section about why David Montgomery is listed as questionable. So I think he's still a fine pick to make here. I'll make that as my late 3rd round selection. And then it was between him and Chris Carson, kind of doubling down here on the Bears. But I'm going to take Allen Robinson. I loved what I saw from Justin Fields in that opener. It was a preseason game. Let's keep that in context here, not get too excited. He did have kind of a slow start. That's all right. I mean, any player is going to get off to a clunky or rusty start when they haven't played since the following year, and especially when you're bumping up to NFL action, that's going to be a change of pace. And Justin Fields said that the game felt slow to him. I wouldn't read too much into that either. I think that's great that he felt comfortable. I think it's great that he felt like he was poised and under control. But that team was not game planning for him. That team was not trying to stop Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears quarterback. They were out there doing the same thing that the Bears were doing. Actually, maybe not. I think the Bears are out there trying to develop Justin Fields and see what he can do, whereas the Dolphins more so are just kind of looking at, who are going to be the next guys up on this Dolphins defense after the starters are out of there. So obviously, there's a different approach here. We saw this with the Packer game as well. Green Bay's coming out here trying to develop Jordan Love, whereas the Texans are just trying to find chemistry with their players and get them involved in some action. So there's definitely not a clear-cut objective of winning football games for every team in the preseason like there is in the regular season. So that's why we just kind of have to be careful with how we assess and value production or lack of production in preseason games, because it's a wild spectrum of, is it really news or noise? What's the meaning of that? So Robinson's the second pick, though, and going back to what I said, though, I do feel good about Justin Fields. I am excited for what he can be as a fantasy player. I think he elevates the ceiling of this Bears offense to another level, and hopefully he can ultimately unleash Allen Robinson's fantasy ceiling because we'll see better downfield looks, hopefully an uptick in touchdown production, which will trickle down to all players, but hopefully see some sort of a bounce off onto Allen Robinson. I just think that with how many targets he's seen the last 2 years in this offense with really, really bad quarterback play, his production should increase this year when he has better play at that position. So a fairly easy argument to be made there, but okay, clock's winding down. Today we're not forgetting about TJ Hawkinson as we did in the last video. I drafted TJ Hawkinson in the 16-team league, and then like 9 rounds later, I was like, oh, I should probably draft a tight end. And I got a quality handcuff. It was like the 10th or 11th round of a 16-team league. So you're talking roughly the 160th overall pick plus. And I draft Evan Ingram, who I honestly think you could feel fine with as your starter because, as I've constantly said ad nauseum this offseason, the tight ends after the first 6 go off the board, which ding, 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 they just went off the board because I took the last one. I think that they all have very similar cases to be made. Maybe Dallas Goedert and Noah Fant squeeze themselves into a tier above the rest of these guys, but other than that, they all have virtually no floor, and they've all got a case to be made for their ceilings. I love Hawkinson because I think he has both. I think the target volume he'll see in Detroit is enough of an argument to be made for his floor. And then on top of that, if he's efficient and effective with those opportunities, he's going to have a nice ceiling. So a player who didn't really have an overwhelmingly great year in 2020 finishes as the tight end 4. Just think about what he can do now that he is quite possibly the best passing offensive target this team has. So the reason I went Hawkinson there with that first pick was I really hadn't made up my mind because I, again, had been talking and hadn't chosen which receiver or running back I wanted to take here. So I've got about 30 seconds to make my mind up. I think it's possible to take a Myles Gaskin here. It wouldn't be my favorite choice, but again, something I could do. We're in the 6th round, so taking him as my RB3 certainly wouldn't be something that I'd be against. And when I see the receivers, I just don't feel great about them. Deontay Johnson. I'm going to go Myles Gaskin. I think that Gaskin's going to see a knock in his production this year, in his overall ceiling that he can have, because he's going to lose touchdown production. He's not going to have that much involvement in the red zone because I believe that Malcolm Brown will come in here and unfortunately vulture a lot of those looks away. But I also think Myles is still capable of scoring in a full PPR league. I mean, he's going to see some goal line carries, just probably not as much as he did last year because Jordan Howard was there for a snippet of time, then they cut him, moved on, and then it was basically Salvon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin and oh man, who's the? It's not. Oh, I'm in a really not. It's gonna bother me to an end here if I can't think of who. Was it Patrick Laird? Who is the running back for the Dolphins? Whatever, I can't think of it here, but. Basically, their third string back would come in, and am I crazy? Is it Patrick Laird? I'm sorry, guys. I told you it was going to drive me nuts. If you look at that, I was right. Patrick Laird. Nice. This screams RB1. Check it out. RB1. RB1. All right. No more Patrick Laird jokes. So Myles isn't going to see as much goal line production because he had basically no competition in that area of the field last year. Malcolm will come in this season. He'll do some nice work in that area of the field. But what I like about Gaskin in this full PPR setting is that he is going to be a player who is going to get passes, and he's going to be lined out wide in the slot, probably not wide as in an outside the numbers type player. But he did line up in the slot every once in a while. They do have a much better receiver core this year. But the point being, his skill set still allows him to be a pass catcher, which is what I like here. He can be efficient. He can get volume. He does have some of the highest mileage on his legs for a player of his age because of his college usage, but I think that should be fine. In drafting him at the top of the 6th round with, again, the status of being my team's RB3, I think it's a very fair situation to make that draft pick. And here, man, talk about an RB-heavy draft. I'm going to go out and I'm going to draft Trey Sermon. Then I'm going to turn right back around, I might just do it. I'm going to draft Michael Carter here. So, we've locked up 5 running backs I feel real good about now. So, this RB group is going to be chugging this team along here, riding us down the train tracks. I mean, Aaron Jones and David Montgomery. I get myself a pretty quality RB1 and RB2 pairing. The RB6 finisher in Aaron Jones last year, the RB4 finisher in David Montgomery. He wasn't quite as consistent as Jones was the whole year, but the top end heights of his fantasy performances that he reached at the end of the season really propelled those numbers, and he was putting up monster stats. I still think he'll be a workhorse back. Maybe some receiving volume goes away because Tariq Cohen is there, but at the end of the day, I'm really liking that top 2 RB core. Gaskin can be a here and there starter, and then Trey Sermon and Michael Carter are late season ceiling plays. Michael Carter should enter the season as the RB1 for the Jets, and you see he's currently listed as that right now. He excels as a pass catcher, but even if he doesn't, we saw Jonathan Taylor get off to a slow, sluggish start last year and finish the year off strong. The Jets aren't the best offensive situation either. He doesn't have the offensive line to work with that JT did at the end of the season, but these 2 backs, give me some young, fresh legs at the running back position. I think that'll carry us home at the end of the season. And then having 2 really strong players I would consider wide receiver ones, in addition to the fact that I think I have a top 5 tight end in TJ Hawkinson, makes me feel pretty dang good about how this team is currently constructed here. Time's kind of ticking out here. This might be a little bit of a more risky draft because of how RB heavy I went early, and I'm thinking about drafting a Deshaun Watson right now. I see I'd love a Zach Moss here too, but I need to address other positions. Where do we want to go here? See, I could go Will Fuller, but he's suspended. I feel like, I don't know. I also don't love that the Dolphins have a Week 14 bye, and I wouldn't like to have 2 players on a Week 14 bye. You're hearing me talk about some bye week analysis. This isn't something I've really touched on much this offseason. Where were the Colts again? I think the Colts were like week 9, maybe? Let me check it out here in a second, but I do know for a fact he's not Week 14. So, or is he? I think he actually might be. Oh, man. Yep, okay. Well, so much for that. He is also a Week 14 bye week. The Pats, the Dolphins, the Colts, there's one more I want to say that all have Week 14 byes. So, you know what? That's fine. At the end of the day, I feel good about these 2. I'll grab up some more receivers here as the board thins out. But, do I want to go Rashad Bateman right now? See, I have the RB strength to keep this team chugging through the majority of the regular season, especially early on. I think I can plug in Michael Carter and Myles Gaskin into those 2 flex spots right away and play just fine until a Rashad Bateman returns from injury, until a Michael Pittman maybe has that breakout game. See, there's a lot of ways you could go about this. I do still need a quarterback, which might be a more pressing need since there are a lot of receivers pushed on the board here. I love Elijah Moore, Darnell Mooney. You'll see some other names: Russell Gage, Nelson Aguilar, Marvin Jones, who had a spectacular catch with Trevor Lawrence. He had 3 for 52 when Lawrence was on the field, so that was something awesome to see as well. Do I have the guts to do it? See, I have to basically disregard tight ends and running backs right now because I've already got 5 running backs. My depth there is very, 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 very good. Tight end is senseless to me, drafting 2 of them at this little of a gap on the board. I mean, my second tight end would never play for this team unless Hawkinson gets hurt or is on a bye week. So that's not something I'm really concerned about. Corey Davis and Rashad Bateman I would love to have on this team. But I think I'm going to take a chance here. We're going to roll the dice on Deshaun Watson. I'll probably draft a second quarterback just to follow along with the strategy. But the upside of this team should be pretty dang good if things play out my way. Time's running out here. I'm a Packer fan. Just watched the Texans game. And Deshaun Watson did not even travel with the team. I don't think they had any expectations of playing him, whether or not he is going to show up for the team or not. But the way I interpreted it, based off of the broadcast, based off of what I've been hearing, reading on Twitter, it's more of a Deshaun Watson just did not want to come situation than it was like the Texans. Oh, stay at home, Deshaun. Don't bother yourself with making the trip. Guys will still come along even if they're not suiting up. So I think that Watson will play for somebody this year because the allegations haven't materialized into anything to keep him off the field to this point. They still could. That's very real. It's a possibility that could arise if evidence comes out against him. So that's why I need to draft a second quarterback in the case that situation happens. But I anticipate the Texans will deal Deshaun Watson probably before the start of the season. Would be in their best interest. Why would you keep a guy around on your roster who's just showing up to practice and doesn't want to be there? Tyrod Taylor took first team starting reps with the unit last night, or I guess on Saturday night. This video is coming out Monday morning. You know, like, there's clearly no expectation of him being the week 1 starter. So why wouldn't you move him to another team, eliminate the distraction, help out another organization, secure yourself guaranteed draft picks? Houston, you're not going to get anything if you wait and the allegations do come about to be something. And Watson is added to the commissioner's exempt list and can't play this year. So I think something's got to happen here. Something's got to give. I've heard Philly a lot tossed around. The Panthers are keeping a close eye on the situation. A lot of things could happen here. So I like that. I think that obviously if he does play for either of those teams, the Panthers have a loaded receiving core and the Eagles have Devontae Smith. That should be just enough. He worked just fine with just DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm not saying Devontae Smith is DeAndre Hopkins, but he's not alone out there, and it can't possibly be worse than the Texans. So, although he does have a very good left tackle. All right, we need some receivers. It's time to hit that area of the board. I've neglected that position for far too long here. I'm going to go out and grab 2 guys I feel really comfortable and safe with. Aguilar is a really high ceiling play for me this year. He technically wasn't a starter for most of last season for the Raiders. Still put up dang near, I think it was 896 yards, so dang near 900, and he had 8 receiving touchdowns. He could do that for the Pats. I don't feel great about his quarterback play right now. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a deep down-the-field passer in the next level, at least this early in year 1, whereas I do expect that Cam Newton might try, but the accuracy is a bit more of a question mark. Marvin Jones, I saw it on display. Preseason game week 1. He made a great contested catch from Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence hit him 3 times for 52 yards. To me, it's more so showing Lawrence's trust in Jones than it really does his production against who was out there on the field. I just feel really good about what I saw in that aspect of things. I've been talking about this for a while throughout the offseason. Marvin Jones is on my sleeper list in the draft guide. I've talked about him in sleeper videos here on the channel to just a public audience here. I said, what if the oldest, most veteran receiver in the room just happens to be the guy that develops the connection and gets the trust from the young quarterback who is basically a prodigy? So you think he'd have something going on upstairs where he might think, oh, maybe the vet will be a smart option for me to go with the ball. Yes, DJ Chark, I don't believe is out there on the field. I didn't see him out there. Let's check on that. DJ Chark, where are you, man? Let's see, I got 50 seconds. We're good. Let's see if I can find him here first. I'm looking for the completely wrong. Here he is. Any news on him? Oh, that's right. He has a fractured finger. Yeah, so of course he wouldn't be out there. So yes, Chark wasn't on the field, so we won't really know how that'll stack up unless he gets out there in the preseason or until week 1. But I still think it's a situation that Jones will be used, and at worst, the wide receiver 2 in this offense. So I like Laviska Shenault. I like his dynamic abilities, but I just feel more comfortable investing into Marvin Jones. And he's, oh, okay. That's fun. You guys can see all of my previous mock drafts here. Boom. Gotta love it. All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right, time to make a pick. Oof, we're on the clock. We're really riding up against things. Fitzmagic. That was a really, it wasn't actually too bad of a reach. His ADP was 162, I think, or something like that. I wouldn't have wanted to be auto-drafted Kenneth Gainwell, let's just say that. So, in the meantime, Fitzmagic kind of fulfills that role for us of, you know, if Deshaun Watson hasn't been moved yet, if he's not playing early on in the season, I think Fitzmagic can do just fine. His ceiling is as good as anybody's. His floor is honestly quite terrible, but we saw Tampa Bay Fitzmagic and Miami Fitzmagic get the job done and feed receivers the volume they needed and just put up some wild stats. Again, he's not going to be a consistent player. He'll be all the way up here one week, and then he'll just crush through the floor the next week, throw 5 picks, and be a meltdown. But The point is, he's more of an insurance policy play here for Deshaun Watson. I did actually have to draft him as a QB1 a couple of videos back. I didn't feel great about it, but he is on my sleeper list. At the end of the day, I respect, you got to put your money where your mouth is. So I've drafted him here a couple times in these mock drafts. And I think it can turn out somewhat nice. So, of the receivers left on the board, I think the intelligent choice would be to pick Cole Beasley here. Hopefully he doesn't quit football. I've talked about that enough this offseason that I'll just let that be. But he was a dang special player last year. A waiver wire find for me in pretty much all leagues. In my 2 flex leagues, I was starting him basically every week. And he was putting up great numbers. I mean, he had double-digit reception games, cracking through the 100-yard marker, scoring touchdowns. His route running, his shiftiness in the slot is very, very valuable to that team. So I think that's a situation you can't go wrong with. So I've addressed the need for a second quarterback on this roster. Again, if D-Watt hasn't been moved, isn't playing week 1, I've at least got an option there. It wouldn't be too hard to trade for a quarterback either if neither of these work out. Look at the running back depth. I mean, I'm not going to give up Jones or Montgomery, but I could sell a Gaskin for a low-end starting quarterback. I bet I could pull off a Gaskin for Tannehill trade or something for another quarterback I really like, a Kirk Cousins. Have limited ceilings, but really strong floors that can at least get you where you want to go if the rest of your team does their part. So 2 rounds left, 2 picks, back-to-back here to finish off today's video, and then we'll be out of here. So the running back group is dried up, pretty not so hot there. Glad I took advantage of that early. Again, loving the upside of those 2 rookies. Myles Gaskin's a quality RB3 or flex play, and then Aaron Jones and David Montgomery I feel very, very good about. I could take a dart throw here. If you stuck around or were around here a few videos back when I talked about Bryan Edwards, that might be a pick I make here. I could also take, as opposed to a Fitzmagic, I do love his ceiling a lot more, but maybe Derek Carr would have been a smart floor pick there. His floor isn't all that elite either, but I do think that he has some fantasy value. I'll go Bryan Edwards here. I think he's more valuable at this point than Christian Kirk, AJ Green, Paris Campbell, Kadarius Toney, any of those names on the table. I think that when John Gruden speaks of him the way he did, when you look at his just athletic profile, his height and weight, the way he moves, his contested catch ability, you feel good about him. And John Gruden said that he reminds him of Terrell Owens, which is a very lofty comparison there. So just having that in your back pocket could turn into some nice volume, usage, plays drawn up for him in the offense. I remember talking about him last year and hearing other fantasy analysts say this too. They would not have been surprised if Bryan Edwards, and looking back, and some Dynasty channels talk about this as well, 3 years in the future from the 2020 offseason, if looking forward into the future, Bryan Edwards was the wide receiver 1 for the Raiders, not Henry Ruggs. And I think that it's fair because you look at what he can do, what he did in college, the upside he has. There's really no reason why not. Henry Ruggs can't run routes that well, and unless that changes, and that's a significant thing to change in one offseason, to develop an entire route tree of running routes, we might just see the Bryan Edwards show this year. And John Brown, who I thought was going to be the top dog in this offense, not currently labeled as a starter. I see Tim Tebow here. Just a quick note. Did anyone see that Tim Tebow block? It was pretty embarrassing. It was on NFL Memes IG if you were wondering where to find that. Tim Tebow could be the Taysom Hill role. Thanks for sharing. Not like anyone expected anything else. Basically what happened was they were running, I forget exactly where the running back ended up to, but the offensive line was basically stretch blocking to the left-hand side, and Tim Tebow's job was to come back and chip, I gotta make my pick, and chip the defensive tackle, and he basically threw a shoulder at him, bounced off of him, and then just landed on his hands and knees. It was quite funny. So Bryan Edwards is a sneaky sleeper pick, if you were wondering about that. The Dolphins, I just love having some ball hawks in the secondary. I love the zone scheme that Brian Flores runs, the disguised looks and coverages that he uses, and just having a lot of ways to make turnovers happen. I talk about the Dolphins a lot because it's one of my favorite defenses to target. They get a pass rush going. They blitz linebackers. They've got speed out there. It's just a good situation to be in. So Thank you so much for watching today's video, you guys. We'll break down the team really quick here to have a couple closing thoughts, messages, and then we'll get you guys headed out here on a Monday and ready for Tuesday's video. We went a bit of a risky path in today's episode, a bit of a unique strategy, but I do like how the team turned out here. Deshaun Watson, high upside quarterback play, top 10, top 8, top 5 potential if he's out there for all 16 or 17 games now. Obviously, who knows if he'll play all of those, but hopefully for the sake of this team, he does. Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, I feel really good about that 1-2 punch, as I do feel really good about Stephon Diggs and A-Rob as my number 1 and 2 receivers. Hawkinson, give me that top 5 tight end production all day of the week, or all day, every day, twice on Sundays. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Myles Gaskin, Trey Sermon, Michael Carter, my reserve running backs. I feel really good about those 3. I think those are quality handcuff options. Well, they're not even handcuffs. They're just potential down the road starters that you're waiting for their upside to hit. Maybe Myles Gaskin is more of a flex play every week just because he already has some established value. But in terms of those rookies, that's what we're looking for there. Pittman, Gage, Marvin Jones, Cole Beasley, Bryan Edwards. Just taking some dart throws at the wide receiver position, looking for some value, some players that could be starters late on. I think Russell Gage will be very, very quality in a wide receiver too. Michael Pittman's got a heck of a lot of upside. I don't love his play style and overall who he is as a player, but I think that somebody has to step up with the Colts. Carson Wentz is trending towards being available week 1, but if he's not, I think Pittman's the best option for just a stereotypical quarterback who's not going to be gunslinging, just because I think that plays more to Paris Campbell and T.Y. Hilton's play styles. And then Fitzmagic, kind of the insurance policy here, the last pick on the board, the last name I haven't touched on. In case Deshaun Watson doesn't play, a high ceiling play, low floor, but I think the rest of this team can make up for that because there's some pretty good floor here across the rest of the board. So one more time, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Head down, join that community Discord, hop into one of these mock drafts with me. Before the season's over, I'll be setting up some community leagues in there as well. I've been joining some people's leagues as well, some money leagues, some free leagues, whatever it might be. I just want to get involved with you guys, so hop in there. I'd have a great time talking with any of you, chatting fantasy football, NFL, whatever it might be. The draft guide collection that's going on sale right now, we've got that. Head over, it's in the description of today's video as well. You see it up on your screen, and you can get yourself hooked up with some great fantasy content and help for your drafts this season. So thank you so much, you guys. I'll see you in the comment section down below. If you've got any questions, I'll answer those. I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I see that. And I'm always trying to make myself as available as possible to help you with all of your fantasy needs. So one more time, I said it like 7 times, but thank you. I truly appreciate each and every single one of you all. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.